Let me ask you something straight, brother. When was the last time you felt genuinely wanted by your wife? Not tolerated, not accommodated, wanted. If that question makes you uncomfortable, good. Because for millions of men, that discomfort has become the background noise of their lives. Quiet, persistent, easy to ignore during the day, deafening at night. And here's the brutal truth most people don't want to say out loud. Sexless marriages aren't rare anymore. They're normal. Between 25 and 50% of marriages today qualify as sexless, meaning sex 10 times a year or less. That's not a rough patch, that's a lifestyle. And if you think that doesn't matter, if you've been telling yourself, it's not that big a deal, stay with me. Because what this actually does to a man runs a lot deeper than most people are willing to admit. Welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, my name is Harold. This is The Hidden Code. We talk about relationships, masculinity, and self-development through actionable, practical psychology. No theory for theory's sake, no comforting lies, just real-world dynamics and what actually works when things start breaking down. So if you're in a marriage where intimacy has quietly disappeared, or you feel like you're slowly becoming roommates with a mortgage, you're in the right place. Now, to be fair, there are seasons in every marriage where sex drops off. A newborn, a death in the family, a health crisis. Life hits hard sometimes, libido dips, that's normal. Those are seasons. The problem is when the season never ends, when months turn into years, when we're just busy right now becomes the new baseline. Chronic sexlessness isn't neutral, it isn't harmless. It doesn't just sit there quietly, it erodes respect, it corrodes connection. And over time, it rewires how a man sees himself inside his own marriage. If you want proof, don't take my word for it. Scroll the comments under videos like this, or spend 10 minutes on the Dead Bedroom forums online. Hundreds of thousands of men saying the same thing in different ways. I feel unwanted. I feel invisible. I feel like a burden. And here's the part no one prepares men for. When your wife says no to you sexually, it almost never comes without an explanation, an excuse, something that sounds reasonable enough on the surface to shut the conversation down. That's what we're unpacking today. Not to bash women, but so you, as a man, can finally see these excuses for what they actually are and stop internalizing blame that was never yours to carry. Because no matter which excuse she uses, there is one underlying reason behind all of them. I'll keep coming back to it, and by the end of this video, you won't be able to unsee it. But first, let's start with the most common one, the classic, the all-purpose shield. I don't have time. You've heard this one, right? And here's what's important. When women say this, most of them genuinely believe it. In their mind, it feels true. Their days feel packed, their energy feels drained, but belief and reality aren't the same thing. So let's slow this down and actually look at it without emotion, just math. We all get the same time allowance, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. That gives us 10,080 minutes every week. That's your total time budget. Now let's talk about how much time sex actually takes. The average duration of intercourse from penetration to ejaculation is about 5 minutes. Therapists say anywhere from 3 to 7 minutes is considered adequate, 7 to 13 desirable. That's not me flexing stats to make a point, that's just data. Even if we're generous and include foreplay, the average full sexual encounter clocks in at around 20 minutes. Let's lock that in, 20 minutes. So now the question becomes simple, how often? And here's where biology matters, whether people like it or not. Men have 10 to 20 times more testosterone than women. Testosterone drives libido in both sexes, but men are swimming in it. Women aren't. That creates a natural desire gap. The healthy solution isn't pretending the gap doesn't exist, it's compromise. Men come down a bit, women come up a bit. Research suggests the sweet spot for mutual happiness lands around once a week, one time, 20 minutes, out of 10,080 minutes. So when a woman says she doesn't have time, what she's really saying, without realizing it, is that 20 minutes a week doesn't rank high enough to protect. And that's where this stops being about time and starts being about priorities. Because let's be honest, brother. If I asked to see her screen time, her streaming history, her social media usage, that mystery would solve itself real quick. Doom scrolling somehow finds hours. Netflix episodes autoplay just fine. But intimacy? That's where the clock suddenly becomes ruthless. And here's the uncomfortable question no one wants to ask out loud. If you don't have 20 minutes a week for your husband, what exactly are you married for? Companionship without intimacy isn't marriage, it's a contract with better PR. What makes it worse is that many women will deny their husbands for years, sometimes decades, then act shocked when he starts taking care of himself or checking out emotionally. They'll demand self-control without acknowledging the biological and emotional restraint he's already exercising daily. And the irony is rich, because everyone gives in to their impulses somewhere. Food, comfort, validation, nobody's a monk by default. So let me say the quiet part clearly. This excuse collapses the moment you examine it. The real issue isn't time, it's that she doesn't believe you're worth prioritizing. That's the thread you'll see running through every excuse we're about to cover. And once you see that pattern, you can't unsee it. Before we move on, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been told, "I don't have time," and how did it land for you? Or if this hit home, just comment, "priority." And if this conversation matters to you, make sure you're subscribed and join a growing community of men who are done being confused, done being gaslit, and ready to understand the real dynamics shaping their relationships. So let's move to excuse number 2, because this one sounds even more reasonable on the surface. I'm too tired. I'm mentally exhausted. I'm stressed. I've got too much going on. If you have kids, especially young kids, you've heard some version of this more times than you can count. And before anyone gets defensive, let's be clear, there is some truth here. Expanding a family expands responsibility, more people to care for, more tasks, more emotional labor, more logistics. That part is real. But here's where things quietly go sideways. When life gets busier, something has to give. Time doesn't magically stretch, energy doesn't multiply. You have to steal time from somewhere. And what happens in a lot of marriages is that women don't steal that time from non-essential things. They don't steal it from scrolling, streaming, social comparison, or unrealistic standards. They steal it from their husband, from intimacy, from sex. And that choice doesn't feel intentional, but it absolutely is. Brother, I want you to notice something important here. When someone tells you they're too tired for something, what they're really saying is not, "I have no energy." They're saying, "This is not what I'm willing to spend my energy on." Because nobody is too tired for the things they deeply value. People are tired every day and still find energy to text, to scroll, to argue online, to binge a show they've already seen. Fatigue doesn't erase desire, it reveals priorities, and women will often respond to that by saying, "You don't understand the mental load." And they're right about one thing. Men and women experience mental load differently. A woman's brain is often running like a browser with 30 tabs open, none of them ever fully closing. Groceries, kids, appointments, work, house, social obligations. The list never ends. But here's the uncomfortable part. Most of that load is self-generated, self-maintained, self-reinforced. I know women who are exhausted trying to live up to a version of life they absorbed from Instagram. Clean house, thriving career, perfect kids, fit body, active social life, homemade meals, and somehow still glowing. It's an illusion, and chasing it burns women out. But here's what gets missed. Your husband never asked for most of that. He doesn't care if the dishes sit in the sink overnight. He doesn't care if the laundry isn't folded immediately. He doesn't need a curated lifestyle. He needs connection. And for him, sex is not optional to that connection. This is where men and women keep talking past each other. For a lot of women, sex feels like one more thing on the to-do list, one more demand, one more drain. But for men, sex is the way emotional closeness is built and maintained. It's how he feels chosen, how he feels bonded, how he feels at peace in the relationship. He can handle a lot of stress in life if that part is solid. Take that away, and everything else starts to feel heavier. Think of it like this. Imagine a man telling his wife, "I'm too tired to listen to you. I'm too stressed to talk. I'm mentally overloaded, so I just can't be present with you." And then imagine him saying that consistently for years. Everyone would immediately recognize that as emotional neglect. No one would defend it. But when the neglect is sexual, suddenly it's treated like a minor inconvenience instead of a serious breach. And here's where this excuse really falls apart. There are 24 hours in a day. Not everything is going to get done. Something will always fall off the list. The question is what? And when sex is consistently the thing that gets cut, that sends a message whether anyone intends it or not, you come last. That message lands every single time, even if it's wrapped in exhaustion and stress. Women often say, "I'm just so overwhelmed." But overwhelmed by what? By trying to keep up with a standard that doesn't actually serve the relationship. By trying to be everything to everyone except the one person who needs you in a very specific way. And again, this isn't about cruelty or malice. It's about misalignment. Effort reveals priorities. Always, not words, not intentions. Effort. Let me put it bluntly, brother. If she wanted to, she would. Not because she's evil if she doesn't, but because humans find a way to do what they truly believe matters. The dishes will wait. The laundry will still be there. The emails can go unanswered for 20 minutes. The world doesn't collapse because intimacy happened, but marriages collapse all the time because it didn't. So why is "I'm too tired" just another excuse? Because once again, it leads back to the same root. You are not being prioritized, not because you're unworthy, but because something else has been allowed to outrank you. And until that hierarchy changes, the exhaustion will never go away. It will just be redirected. I want you to sit with this for a second. Have you ever felt like you were expected to understand, to wait, to be patient indefinitely? If that resonates, drop a comment and tell me what excuse you hear most often. Or just comment "effort." Sometimes naming it is the first step to seeing it clearly. Now we get to the one that sounds the most final, the one that feels like a dead end. "I just don't have a sex drive anymore." Or sometimes it's softened. "I never really enjoyed sex. My desire just disappeared." And when a man hears this, it usually lands like a verdict. Not an issue to work through, but a permanent condition he's expected to accept without protest. And brother, this is where a lot of men quietly give up. They stop initiating. They stop expressing need. They stop seeing themselves as sexual beings inside their own marriage. Let's ground this in reality first. Yes, women naturally have a lower sex drive than men on average. Testosterone matters. Biology matters. That gap is real. But a lower drive is not the same as no drive. Humans are biologically wired to seek sexual connection. It's not just about reproduction. It's about bonding, regulation, and intimacy. So when desire is completely absent, that's not a personality trait. That's a signal. Something is off. And signals are meant to be investigated, not ignored. There are legitimate reasons this can happen. Hormonal imbalances, depression, anxiety, past trauma, side effects of medication, postpartum changes, menopause. All of those are real, and when those things are present, compassion is necessary. But compassion doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean shrugging and saying, "Well, I guess this is just how it is now," and expecting your husband to absorb the cost indefinitely. Here's the line that matters. When there is a potential fix and it's refused, the issue stops being biological and becomes relational. If hormones are low and nothing is done, if therapy is needed and avoided, if doctors are never consulted, if solutions exist and no effort is made, that's not bad luck, that's a choice. And the unspoken message of that choice is brutal. Your needs are not important enough for me to address this. A woman can choose celibacy for herself. Absolutely, bodily autonomy matters. But marriage removes the option of unilateral decisions that directly affect the other person's core needs. You don't get to rewrite the contract by yourself and then act offended when the other party struggles. That's not how agreements work, especially not ones that are supposed to be mutual. Menopause is the clearest example of this fork in the road. Hormones drop, estrogen disappears, testosterone follows, desire tanks, sex becomes uncomfortable or mentally uninteresting, and a lot of women are told implicitly or explicitly, this is just how it is now. But it doesn't have to be. Hormone replacement therapy exists, and when it's done correctly, it doesn't just restore libido. It often improves mood, energy, confidence, and overall quality of life. I've heard countless stories from couples where their sex life after menopause was better than it ever was before. More intentional, more confident, more connected, and yet only a tiny fraction of women pursue that path. So the question isn't whether menopause kills desire. The question is whether desire is important enough to fight for. Because menopause can either mark the beginning of the worst sexual chapter of a marriage or the best. The biology creates the challenge. The response determines the outcome. There's another version of this excuse that shows up more quietly. The woman who wanted marriage not because she was deeply attracted to her husband, but because marriage was a step toward motherhood. The husband becomes a means to an end, a provider, a protector, a co-parent. Once the family structure is secured, his sexual relevance fades. He's still useful, but he's no longer desired. And from her perspective, that feels normal. From his, it feels like being demoted without explanation. In both cases, the core pattern is the same. The husband is no longer the priority, and when someone is truly valued, effort follows. Appointments get scheduled, therapy gets booked, hormones get checked, conversations get uncomfortable but necessary. A woman who values her husband does the work because she understands something fundamental. Sexual rejection doesn't just deny access to her body, it denies access to connection. A man who is repeatedly rejected doesn't just feel horny and frustrated, he feels unwanted. He feels undesirable. He feels like an inconvenience. Over time, that turns him into something he never agreed to be. An involuntary monk, living a celibate life he did not choose, inside a marriage that promised intimacy. And here's the part no one likes saying out loud. When a woman extracts the benefits of marriage while refusing the obligations that come with it, the dynamic becomes parasitic. He provides stability, protection, resources, commitment. She withholds affection, desire, and intimacy. That imbalance corrodes respect on both sides. Before we move on, I want you to reflect. Have you been told desire is just gone, with no effort made to understand why? If this resonates, comment choice, not as blame, as clarity, because seeing the pattern clearly is the first step to deciding what you're willing to live with. So now we arrive at excuse number 4, the one that usually shuts men up immediately because it sounds unchallengeable. It hurts. And let's be clear right up front. This one can be real. A woman's body is complex. There are legitimate medical conditions that can make penetrative sex uncomfortable or even painful. Menopause, hormonal depletion, vaginal atrophy, PCOS, pelvic floor damage after childbirth, bladder issues, scar tissue. This isn't imaginary, and no decent man wants to hurt his wife. So most men respond the same way. They back off, they suppress their desire, they tell themselves, this is just my life now. But here's where the conversation usually stops too early. Because the existence of pain does not automatically justify the end of intimacy. It explains a problem. It does not excuse inaction, especially when many of these conditions are treatable, manageable, or at the very least adaptable. Take menopause as the most common example. When estrogen disappears, tissue thins, lubrication drops, testosterone follows, desire evaporates, sex becomes mentally unappealing and physically uncomfortable. And if nothing is done, yes, sex will hurt. But that outcome is not inevitable. Hormone replacement therapy dramatically reduces or eliminates these symptoms for many women, and yet the overwhelming majority never pursue it, which means in practice, a huge number of marriages quietly transition into permanent sexual shutdown, not because there was no solution, but because the solution wasn't prioritized. And even in cases where penetration truly isn't possible, the conclusion most women jump to is still flawed. They assume sex equals intercourse. Full stop. And if intercourse is off the table, intimacy is over. But that's not how male sexuality works, and it's not how intimacy works either. Sex is not a single act. It's a category, a wide one. Hands, mouth, touch, initiation, enthusiasm, presence. There are countless ways to meet a man's sexual needs without penetration, and a woman who prioritizes her husband looks for ways to adapt instead of ways to withdraw. Here's a simple thought experiment. Imagine if roles were reversed. If a man physically couldn't provide emotional presence in the way his wife needed, would it be acceptable for him to just check out entirely? Or would we expect him to find alternative ways to show care, attention, and connection? Of course we would. The same logic applies here. A woman who values her husband finds satisfaction in taking care of him, not just out of duty, but out of desire to give something only she can give. Now let's move to the last excuse, because this one is subtle and corrosive. We just did it. This statement is more revealing than women realize. Most women drastically overestimate how often sex happens. Memory gets fuzzy, emotion fills in the gaps, and that's why tracking reality, even briefly, can be so clarifying. Data doesn't argue. It doesn't guilt trip. It just sits there quietly exposing the truth. But the real damage of this phrase isn't about frequency. It's about tone. Think about when people say, "We just did that." They don't say it about vacations or things they enjoy. They say it about chores, obligations, tasks they don't want to repeat. So when a man hears this, he doesn't hear a neutral statement. He hears disgust, reluctance, resentment, and over time that message sinks in. You are a burden. This excuse is often paired with shame. The man's desire is framed as excessive, pathological, immature. He's told his drive is abnormal, that she's normal, that something is wrong with him. And when she compares notes with friends who also don't want sex with their husbands, it reinforces the illusion that this is just how things are. But brother, common does not mean healthy. Normalized dysfunction is still dysfunction. Here's the truth that collapses all 5 excuses into one. Women who deeply value their husbands prioritize them, period. They find joy in sexually connecting with them. Not because they're desperate for validation, but because there is power in being the woman who knows she can calm her man, ground him, satisfy him, and send him back into the world feeling secure and chosen. That kind of sexual generosity isn't weakness. It's leverage, it's loyalty, it's intimacy at its highest level. Sexual scarcity inside marriage is not benign. It is not morally neutral. It slowly starves a man while demanding he pretend he's full. And when that starvation eventually drives him to detach, shut down, or seek validation elsewhere, the same women who denied him will claim betrayal, shock, and victimhood. I can't believe he'd throw away our marriage over sex. But that's not what happened. The marriage was thrown away in small increments every time intimacy was dismissed as optional. So let me crystallize this message clearly. If a woman no longer wants to be a wife in the full sense of the word, not a roommate, not a co-parent, not a friend, but a wife, then the most honest thing she can do is end the marriage. Set the man free. Don't emotionally destroy him by trapping him in a sexless agreement he never consented to. Brother, too many men are suffering quietly because they've been conditioned to believe their needs are shameful. They're not. Wanting your wife is not a flaw. Wanting to feel desired by the woman you committed your life to is not unreasonable. It's foundational. So now I'll ask you directly. Which excuse have you heard the most? Or which one hit closest to home? Let me know in the comments. And if this channel speaks to you, subscribe and join a growing community of men who are done being confused, done being minimized, and ready to understand the real dynamics that shape attraction, intimacy, and respect inside relationships. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.